Salah deal done, league title more or less done. Let's talk to Jamie Carragher. What's the overriding emotion, do you think, amongst Liverpool fans today? Relief? It's all, at least the deal's been sorted out.
Yeah, I think watching the Arsenal game last night, I think most Liverpool supporters feel that they're going to win the league, but they almost just want to confirm it as quick as possible. So I think there was probably a little cheer in most Liverpool households when Brentford got that equaliser. And I think when you're in this position Liverpool are in, the same as any team, they just want to, as I said, get it over as quickly as possible and get it done and, you know, lift that league title.
The Salah contract negotiations seems to have been going on forever, and now that it's sorted, what impact does that have on the Liverpool players in that dressing room this afternoon?
I think what it does for the Liverpool players, not just the Liverpool players now, probably more for maybe future Liverpool players and maybe players that Liverpool are looking to in the summer. I think the manager mentioned that in his press conference when you're speaking to players now, as they will be, players and agents over these next few months. It's always helpful to say Mo Salah's still at the club next season. So I think not just the players inside the club, more the players that Liverpool will maybe acquire in the summer. What
about Virgil van Dijk? We haven't heard any news yet. Is this news likely to nudge him in the direction of staying put as well?
Maybe, but I think there may be some news on Virgil van Dijk next week. I think the fact that the Mo Salah news came out, maybe not trying to do two players on one day, maybe steal a little bit of the thunder of either of the players, Virgil van Dijk or Mo Salah. Let Mo Salah have his moment a few days ago, and I'm sure that'll be the case with Virgil van Dijk next week.
And it's a glorious day here. The pitch looks fantastic. There'll be a great reception for Mo Salah when he comes out. West Ham, the perfect opponent for Liverpool today. They've got a dreadful record here.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this stage of the season, West Ham are there's a number of teams in the Premier League now, probably Manchester United a little bit the same later on against Newcastle, where there's not a lot to play for them really, but the manager won't be saying that before the game, and he'll want to come here and try and spoil what Liverpool fans might be thinking, a little party with the fact that Mo Salah's signed the contract. Arsenal have dropped points again this weekend, so they want to do something there. But yeah, their motivation probably won't match Liverpool's, but they've definitely got quality players on the pitch who can hurt Liverpool.
And if I'm not mistaken, Liverpool have scored 5 goals on 2 occasions this season, once in the League Cup, once in the game at London, so they'd love to do that today, wouldn't they?
Yeah, and that's probably something that's probably, when you talk about this Liverpool team and compare it to Liverpool teams of the past, especially the Jurgen Klopp teams, maybe it hasn't had enough, sort of eye-catching results with lots of goals in it, so yeah, that'd be nice for them.
And I wondered if the script's written, Mo Salah, 1, 2, maybe a hat-trick, because he scores goals against West Ham.
Yeah, and listen, he'll want to finish the season really strong. I think there's no doubt for me he's going to end up winning Player of the Year, but in the last few weeks he hasn't been the Mo Salah of old. Hopefully the sign of the contract, we'll go back to seeing the Mo Salah that we've seen for most of the season.
And before all the excitement and the anticipation, we've got the very emotional tribute for Hillsborough, 36th anniversary. Does that inspire the Liverpool players? I mean, a lot of them who haven't been at the club for a long time, I'm guessing that they're aware of it, they've been told about it. How much of an inspiration does that prove today?
Yeah, listen, it's a huge part of the history of the football club, and any player coming to this club, I'm sure will know about it, will certainly know a lot more about it when they sort of, put on that red shirt and get to know, as I said, the history. It's not just about, the trophies of the club. There's a lot more to it than that, and that's makes it the club that we are, and it's a day that we always look back on, and we'll never forget it.
And a nailed on Liverpool win and one step further to that title today?
No result's ever nailed on. It's in the Premier League. Liverpool, lost their unbeaten run last week away at Fulham, took the early lead, thought you'd go on and coach the game. That didn't happen. That's the Premier League. So, no, I don't think it's nailed on. But Liverpool at home, at Anfield, playing West Ham, you'd expect them to win, but they've still got to do the business.
Expectancy, that's what it's all about. Good to see you. Thank you very much indeed, Jamie Carragher, with me there. Should be a fascinating afternoon. We kick off here at 2 o'clock. Stay with us.
It's again not a good day for Manchester United fans, apart from one yesterday, a certain Rory McIlroy, who I probably would think doesn't mind too much that result because he had a good result of his own. And you watched it all, Stephen.
Yeah, absolutely. Incredible night. Feeling it now.
Yeah.
Tired.
So if you think he's lacklustre most weeks, just you wait for the next 3 hours. Sue's not watched a single stroke, so you are carrying the show once again.
Yeah, I'm fine, yeah.
Just like normal.
Really
Did you watch it, Rob?
I watched it, yeah.
I know,
let the team down, hasn't she?
I know.
I lost about 5 years of my life on that
Sue
playoff.
learnt about bogeys, birdies,
I did, yeah.
double bogeys.
Albatross. You like an albatross, Sue, don't you?
Oh, yeah, an albatross is really good, isn't it?
Good. Yeah, we'll explain that to you in the break. Let's talk about Newcastle in the meantime, otherwise it will become the golf show. Difficult day, Stephen, yesterday, in the fact that Eddie Howe wasn't there. Of course, we all send him his best wishes and hope he's back on the touchline very shortly. From a player's perspective, how difficult is that to go into a game? Firstly, they will be worried about him on a human level, but to not have the person who usually guides you through a match?
Yeah, I think Jason Tindall spoke after the game and said that he watched the game, so the players will have known that he was able enough to watch the game, so that hopefully tells you a little bit about his condition and where he's at. But the players will have gone into that game knowing that there's an opportunity to close the gap on Champions League football, how important it is. But also, it's not, you don't just look at that work for that week, it's the work throughout the season that's being done by Eddie Howe and his staff leading into a game like that. And the players know where they're at as a team now. I mean, we saw the performance yesterday, it was absolutely brilliant from them. So, yeah, it's not a nice thing, because if things aren't quite going the way you want them to, then you want Eddie Howe to be there to understand tactically how to change things, making substitutions, but Jason Tindall did a good job.
Do you think it's easier, Sue? It was interesting last week after the Manchester derby, Gary Neville talking about players being so micromanaged, that because there is that, because they probably through last week were sent clips about Manchester United, that Eddie Howe being there, the players know what's expected of them, even though he is not there in person.
Oh yeah, and they've worked on it for many, many weeks in training sessions, in games. They know exactly what's expected of them when they go out onto the field, and you can see that. You can see that from a Newcastle perspective. But I think with Newcastle, they've got the structure and the way of playing, but they also have a freedom within that structure. You can see that players certainly flourish playing that way. So yeah, of course, you know, even though Eddie Howe wasn't there, they still know exactly what he expects of them.
As a full-back, would you have fancied defending Harvey Barnes yesterday?
Oh, he was brilliant, wasn't he? Really positive every time he gets the ball. I mean, it's interesting when you do watch wingers, you sort of, you know their strengths and what they're wanting to do, but sometimes you try and second guess them and think, well, they might just go the outside this time. We know Harvey Barnes likes to come inside on that right foot, and it's very strong. He's a great player. The problem he's had this season is obviously injuries, but he's also had Anthony Gordon in front of him, and that's been a difficult task to sort of get him out the team. I don't think either player like playing on that right-hand side, and obviously the form of Murphy's been very impressive, and I think Anthony Gordon's filled in a couple of times when he's had to play as the striker when Isak's been out injured and they didn't have Callum Wilson fit. So yeah, it's a big ask now for Anthony Gordon to get back in, but over the form guide of the whole season, you'd look at it and say Anthony Gordon has probably got the upper hand, but on form off the game yesterday, what a performance from Harvey Barnes.
And I think that's exactly what Eddie Howe wants, isn't it? He wants that competition for places, that Anthony Gordon comes in, does a brilliant job. He obviously goes out, can't play for whether it's injury or suspension, and Harvey Barnes comes in and does, you know, a tremendous job. And you look at both wide players, both him and Jacob Murphy. Like, Jacob Murphy's been absolutely outstanding, and Newcastle have been in for a right-sided attacking player for a long period of time, but he's just performing at a really, really high level. Goals, assists, his work rate, his movement off the ball, everything about him. So I think, yeah, Eddie Howe's probably sitting there thinking, well, this is good. I've got all my wide players performing. You can rest, you can rotate, and it's exactly what you want for next season as well.
Just a very quick one on Jacob Murphy, Stephen. The first Newcastle player since Laurent Robert in 2000-2001 to create 10 open play assists in a season. He's 30. Is there any world where Thomas Tuchel would ever look at him seriously? I know he'll have Saka on that side, he'll play Palmer on the right, he's got Jared Bowen, but again, if you're talking about pure form, is he in the conversation? Yeah,
that's the issue though, isn't it? Because we often say players should be picked on form, and if they are, then you'd have a few surprises within the squad. I think there's just a trust element with Saka and the players that you mentioned, that he wouldn't really go for Murphy, but I think what we've seen is that he's not afraid to throw a little surprise into the mix, i.e. a Dan Burn, where you look at him playing and being in the squad. So I think if you're Jacob Murphy, all you can continue to do is what you're doing. If the call comes, great. If not, you're still at an incredible football club. You're playing the best football of your career. But also as well, for Eddie Howe to get the best out of him, and it's not just Eddie Howe, it's the staff, it's the player, it's the information you take on board, it's whether you want to learn, whether you want to get better. So both parties have to come together and make that work, and at the moment he's playing brilliant.
Yeah.
Let's have a look at what's left for Newcastle in terms of fixtures. They've got that game in hand this week against Crystal Palace, Sue, but given their form, given the form of some of the others around them, how surprised would you be if they didn't make the Champions League next season?
I would be surprised, like you say, that the form that they've got going into it. Because I think after winning the final, you know, the highs of that, they could have quite easily dropped off, but they didn't. You feel like they've really kicked on. Of course, there's some difficult games there. You can say that none of them are a given. There's other teams that are in and around them that are going to be fighting for the same thing. But I just thought yesterday, just watching them, I watched them when they played Manchester United the last time, and I felt like tactically they really got things right in terms of, you know, they pushed Manchester United's wing backs back. The two number 10s of Manchester United didn't quite drop in, so they had that overload in midfield. I thought yesterday, just the athleticism, the physicality, the power, the legs, everything that they had. When they lost the ball, they swarmed all over Manchester United. They went 1-for-1 often, pressing and winning the ball back. So they've got a bit of everything, Newcastle. And you think when they are hitting form, which they're obviously in really good form at the moment, I can't see...
About Arsenal, let's talk about that amazing result on Tuesday night in the Champions League with that 3-0 win at home to Real Madrid. But on top of the win, what really everybody was talking about was those two Declan Rice free kicks. If you haven't seen it, most have. It was a wonderful, wonderful soccer special, and Mercy's reactions to those free kicks, something else.
There's a free kick 30 yards just to the right-hand side. Yeah, I do well to score from here, if I'm being honest. Rice. What a goal! What a goal! Oh, my! What a goal! Oh, my! I'd say don't shoot from there. If it's Rice and Odegaard over, it's about 25 yards out left of the goal. For me, it's for Rice to bend it over the wall. He bends it! Oh! What a goal! Did you see? Oh, my! He's in his free kick and he's bent it into the top corner. It's a phenomenal free kick. Oh, my God. Rice, baby.
Leeds should be 3 up. They should have the game in the bag. As it is, here they are. They're leading by a goal to nil. I'm going to shut up. You can tell there's another goal at the Emirates. What a night for Arsenal against the European champions.
Oh, Mourinho scored, and it's another worldie. Lewis Kelly gets the ball, and he rolls it across the box, and he hits it first time, left foot, whips it in the far corner. I cannot believe what I'm watching here. It's Arsenal 3, the champions Real Madrid 0.
And I tell you what, you know it's good. You know it's special when you see a bit of Merce midriff on show. My goodness me.
I got an Under Armour on today.
Well, you're watching Brighton against Leicester. I'm not quite sure it's going to live up to what you saw Tuesday night. I mean, in terms of nights at the Emirates since that stadium took over from Highbury, I don't think you or anyone else has seen anything quite like it, and the nature of it as well.
No, I would say that was the greatest night at the Emirates. I would say that, yeah, it was phenomenal. You know, you talk to the champions of Europe, you know, dominate Champions League football, always thereabouts, and they just blew them away. And they're very fortunate, Real Madrid, that it weren't 4 or 5. Weren't 4 or 5. Arsenal steamrolled them. They were by far the better team, and it was a brilliant, brilliant night. I'm not putting my name to it being over. No, it's Real Madrid, and with the front line, and if they went and scored before half-time...
Then a very different feel.
It's a different... But if you live in the moment, it was a great, great, great result, you know, and, yeah, honestly, the 2 free kicks, the second free kick is mind-blowing, you know, especially against the goalkeeper, Courtois. The first goal, it was a good goal, but when I look at it again, terrible wall. Terrible, terrible wall. The man who's second in the wall has to line up in line with the post, and the outside man stays 1 man behind. He's in line with the post, and he even turns his body. But it does come round, but you'd be disappointed if you're Courtois with the wall.
But it's that second one, to hit 2 in a match. I think Opta worked out about a 1 in 434 chance of that happening in a game. But if you wanted a working definition of a postage stamp goal, that was it.
Oh, and it's hit the side netting. It's gone in and hit the side netting first, which is phenomenal, yeah. And the goalie, as I say, it's Courtois. You know, when you talk about great free kicks, that's one of the top free kicks.
Look at that for a game by 1 player. That is it. That's
you know the lad. I think I'm a big fan of the lad. I think he's a great. You know how good someone is when you never mention how much he costs. And he costs like over £100 million, and that for me that tells you everything. You know, he was bombing forward. There was another time he probably could have had his hat-trick, but brilliant defending by Camavinga. Otherwise, if he gets lazy and doesn't track him back, and there's nothing worse for a midfield player chasing someone back without the ball. I thought Declan Rice was absolutely outstanding on the night, and he's been outstanding. He's consistently good for Arsenal week in, week out, and his country. You know, he's a top player.
And those numbers just back up how good he was, Sue, and I don't think I've seen 2 goals probably more watched over the course of the last week. I've watched them endless times. I'm not even an Arsenal fan, but just from a purely footballing point of view, they were something else. But to do it twice and to improve on the first one, which was good enough. I mean, Merz talks about the wall, we can talk about that, but it was still had to be executed. But then to execute that second one with such precision in a game of that importance tells you everything about the mentality of a player who up until then hadn't scored a free kick.
No, you're right, and it is. It's like you say, it's that pressure to be able to do it once, but then to do it again. And yeah, he's outstanding. I'm completely with Merz. I think the fact that he come for a great deal of money, nobody really spoke about that, and that just shows that the quality of the player. But I remember when he first started taking corners, and there was a lot of questions, why is he taking corners? Because of the presence and because of how good he is in the air. But we know why he takes corners, because he can absolutely put it on somebody's head. And you've seen how successful Arsenal have been taking set pieces. So he's probably thought, do you know what? I can do that from a corner. Let's have a go at a free kick. Because he was actually told, wasn't he, to deliver it into the box. And I think he had a little conversation with Saka. And Saka was like, if you fancy it, have a go. And just unreal. And you know, I'm the same as you. I've watched them again and again. And I was lucky enough to be in the studio. And we couldn't concentrate on our games because we were watching, obviously. We were watching the game. And just incredible from an Arsenal perspective, and him, just the player that he is. We know he's a holding midfielder, but he doesn't have to just do that. He's shown now that he can be that number 8, if you like, the one that gets forward and supports and creates. He'll get back and defend. He's got everything about his game. So I just think he's getting better and better as the season's gone on.
And the thing is,
you've just been sitting with your iPads or that on repeat, just watching.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Some week,
well, you haven't, hey? The thing is,
I've got a life.
Hey, beyond football.
I'm going to start, though, Robbie, as well, with the current state of the Premier League, because it has taken a little bit of a battering last couple of weeks, and lots of people coming in with criticism in terms of the way teams are playing, and of course in that the Premier League title and the relegation situation are all but sewn up. Is it changing the Premier League, and if so, is that a bad thing?
It's definitely changing, and the game always is going to evolve. My comments last week were that the game's becoming a little robotic and players haven't got the spontaneity. I think particularly in wide areas up front, they're recycling the ball quite a lot. We're seeing centre-backs go deeper and deeper to get on the ball, and we're seeing defenders play out more. I mean, what I would say is that you look at sort of Burnley and Southampton in the last couple of years, this is not just the teams at the top, this is the teams at the very bottom. And there is a feeling, definitely, when you speak to fans in the Premier League and sort of in and around the game, that we're seeing poor imitations of what Pep Guardiola has brought into the game. Now, Pep's a genius and he's been able to deliver this style of football, but we're now seeing teams all across the board, even in League 2, League 1 and the Championship, trying to play this type of football. And with Championship players, League 1 and League 2 players, it just doesn't work. You just see a lot more mistakes, and I think fans feel at this moment in time the game is just not as exciting as it should be. But the Premier League's a very high bar, and it is about excitement and thrill. And when we don't see it, we sometimes sort of reject it a little bit and speak out, and I think we should.
Robbie, it's two things, isn't it, though? It's the fact that the title and relegation are virtually sewn up. That's one thing. But then it's also about the way, as Gary was saying, the styles of play that are maybe not as exciting.
Yeah, just on the first part, it's pretty obvious that certain clubs are having transitional seasons. They're not what they were. They're figuring it out. The Chelsea project is very different. It's very young. It's very progressive. But the other bit, as Gary alludes to, I do hear that. But I go back to what we're in here for. We're in for goals. Goals. Now, whether there's less dribbling and there's less kind of forward passing, maybe, but goals have been there. Last season was the most ever Premier League goals scored in one season. That's going back, that beats the early days of 22 teams in the division. And I think it has evolved. I enjoy the tactical side of it. So I've enjoyed watching the progression of certain sides. I think now, back from when we were playing, I was in a team that we were hanging on for most games in the Premier League. I think teams now are not hanging on so much. I think there's more progressive teams than we've ever seen before in terms of trying to be proactive in their football and not just playing safe and sitting back. I don't think we've seen so much parking of the bus in recent seasons. I think the trend is up for goals and the trend's up for more control and more football. There's energy from a resurgent Aston Villa and Newcastle United. The Nottingham Forest story is a great one in terms of counter-attacking. It's not just the Uber playing out from the back. I agree that certain teams at the bottom of the table trying to find a way through haven't done particularly well, Southampton being one of them. Though, by the way, it hasn't changed much when they haven't done so much with a different manager. So you can look at it in different lights. I enjoy the Brightons, the Bournemouths, the Brentfords, the Fulhams play an attractive, attacking style of football that fans enjoy. If not the top of the league table, I think generally, it's pretty good.
Gary, is there a lack of superstar managers?
I mean, the managers, I think, do have a massive influence on the Premier League. Go back to the mid-2000s and then the period that we've just come out of. I think when you've had the likes of Tuchel and Conte, Klopp, Pep Guardiola, and back in the day it was Sir Alex Ferguson, Wenger, Benitez, Mourinho. They are the best managers in the world. I do think they bring a higher level of football. I mean, just going back to sort of what Robbie was saying, at Old Trafford a few weeks ago, I was there, and Manchester United fans don't boo managers and they don't boo players. They started to boo Onana and the defenders when they were playing out from the back across their own box. I've never seen that before at Old Trafford. So I understand the fact that we do see exciting football, progressive football. We don't just go back to 4-4-2 and knocking the ball long and playing into the channels, but there is a happy medium, and I think at this moment in time the balance is such that I just worry about where the game's going a little bit, that we're not allowing players just to take risks in certain areas of the pitch where I believe they should do it. And there are exceptions to that. Saka's an exception to that. Cole Palmer, the PSG wingers the other night were fantastic, I felt, in Europe. So, look, it's not something that we need to really overly worry about this, but we just need to keep it, I think, on guard.
OK.
Just on the managers, real quick. I think it's a great point. Like, the great managers have maybe moved out the league, but you're getting the next breed, the next bunch of greatness. Is Amorim a great coach? Arne Slot has had a pretty good start. You know, if you go down the league, there's a lot of young, kind of the next big thing in the league.
Maresca as well.
Maresca's another one. Can he be a great manager?
We just don't know yet.
Don't know yet.
No.
That's the point.
That's
OK, chaps, thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Lowe, and as we head towards the end of an exciting Premier League season, make sure you...
Salah has signed a new contract until 2027, and we can go to Liverpool's training ground now and join Vinny O'Connor, who has raced over there. Vinny, can you tell us about the deal? What has pushed this one over the line?
Well, these have been negotiations that have been going on for several months now, headed, of course, by Richard Hughes. And there seems to be a will on both sides, certainly from the football club and from Mo Salah himself as well, to get this deal done. Throughout the discussions, it was clear that the desire of both parties really was to reach an agreement on this. And this is a general point really relating to Liverpool's strategy at the moment. Their ambition is to recruit and retain the best talent, and that must remain hand in hand with the sporting, financial and overall best interests of the football club as well, which again I suppose is why this deal has taken a little bit of a while to come to fruition as well, because obviously Mo Salah himself is looking for the best possible deal. But when you look at his record since joining Liverpool in 2017, then there is no question that Mo Salah really belongs in the highest echelons of world football and the world's most outstanding footballers as well. And as such, I suppose this deal represents a mutual commitment to maintain and, where possible, enhance the standards which the player and club continue to aspire to at home and abroad as well. So again, showing the ambition of the football club and Mo Salah over the next couple of years or so as well. You look at Mo Salah's record, I think you guys have just been speaking about it as well. 243 goals and has made 110 assists in 392 appearances for Liverpool. Only two players have scored more goals for Liverpool in the history. That's Ian Rush and Roger Hunt as well. And again, as I say, it kind of maintains Liverpool's ambition to continue to grow under Arne Slot, whilst also keeping the best talent that they have here at the football club. The next step, obviously, and we're expecting it to be not too far away, it would be possibly in the coming days, coming weeks, Virgil van Dijk confirming that he'll be staying at the club, and we await developments, of course, on Trent Alexander-Arnold's future as well.
Well, that's just it, Vinny, with the sort of that trio of players, that there's been that uncertainty. And Trent Alexander-Arnold, it looks as though Madrid is calling. Virgil van Dijk still left to be sorted. How much of a relief will this be for the fans, for the club, and for Arne Slot, who's, you know, potentially overachieved compared to where people thought this side would be as he took over from Jurgen Klopp?
I think it'll be a relief in some parts. I mean, you look at it, it's come at an opportune moment in the season. Liverpool have lost 3 of the last 4 games, so this is a bit of a boost, I suppose, a bit of good news. And we know what criticism the football club has taken as well. Some a little bit unfairly, given the situation and the unprecedented situation they kind of found themselves in with the changes in the hierarchy. Jurgen Klopp announcing he was going to leave. And why would any footballer at that point commit the future when they didn't know who the incoming boss was going to be, and indeed what life would be like under that incoming boss as well? It has been good. We know how impressed the squad have been with what Arne Slot has brought since he came in as the head coach here. So I think it'll be a relief to the fans, obviously, that Mo Salah will be staying here another couple of years. It's a relief to everyone here, to Arne Slot, the fact that Liverpool don't have to go searching immediately to replace him, or the fact is that they can bring in a long-term successor to him now and move forward, I suppose, in that respect, whilst still having Mo Salah for the next couple of years at the very least as well. They know that they've got someone who is performing at an all-time great level. He's done it again so far this season, of course. And in terms of the fans, well, we know just what they feel for Mo Salah as well. So not only will be the relief from a footballing point of view, the fact that they're keeping one of their icons as well will be much relief to the fan base as well.
Vinny, you talk about all-time greats, icons. I know that Mo Salah is aware of numbers. You mentioned some of the numbers of his goals. There's only 2 Liverpool players have ever scored more for the club. When we talk about Premier League, though, he only needs 30 goals to overtake Harry Kane as second place in the all-time standings. That'll be a real target for Mo Salah, won't it?
I would think so, and Mo Salah has made no secret of his ambition to obtain as many records as possible, be it at club level for the Liverpool Football Club as a whole, but also at Premier League milestones as well. So I would imagine that would form part of his decision. We know, of course, of the interest from Saudi Arabia. I never thought at any point that now was the right time for Mo Salah, given the numbers that he's produced again this season. When you look at those figures where he stands in the all-time greats on that goal-scoring list in the Premier League, then of course it makes sense for him to go again next season and the season after. And who knows if he's still producing those kind of numbers again, whether Liverpool and Mo Salah could extend that even further and get even closer to Alan Shearer at the top of that list.
Yeah, it feels a real feather in the cap for the new sporting director, Richard Hughes. Last season, not too many signings were made, but you said yourself he's been front and centre in the negotiations with Mohamed Salah.
Yeah, I think, you know, Liverpool have attracted criticism as well at times about their transfer policy and not spending big, not spending so much over the last couple of transfer windows as well. But you look at the squad that they've got with the talent like Mo Salah, the fact that they'd overhauled their midfield prior to that as well in Jurgen Klopp's final summer transfer window. Was there really the need? The fact is Liverpool have left themselves in a relatively strong financial position to go again in the transfer market coming up this summer, of course. We keep mentioning Trent Alexander-Arnold, the potential that they're going to have to bring in a right back to replace him. If he doesn't sign that new deal, it's looking unlikely, just from the noises that we're getting at the moment and that speculation continuing around Real Madrid, whereas Virgil van Dijk, of course, last week said after that defeat to Fulham that he was getting closer to signing a new deal as well, and subsequently we found out about Mo Salah, and then they've made that announcement today. So, as I say, I think Liverpool under Richard Hughes, again, have maintained a relatively sensible transfer policy so far. We've seen the talent that's within that squad, how they've managed to sustain it for most of the Premier League season. Just 2 defeats in the Premier League so far during this campaign. Only one at home, of course, against Nottingham Forest, and that first one away from home in the Premier League against Fulham last weekend. So now Arne Slot will be looking at his squad, and we know the areas that they'd be looking to strengthen, probably at the back once again, perhaps in that forward line as well. So I think the fact that they've been so sensible over the last couple of transfer windows gives them that opportunity now to really build on what has been a fantastic first season overall for Arne Slot.
Has defended his goalkeeper, Andre Onana, after he made 2 very costly errors in the 2-2 draw at Lyon in their Europa League quarter-final first leg.
Yeah, it increases the pressure on Onana after the former United player Nemanja Matic labelled him as one of the worst goalkeepers in United history.
If you play football and you play a lot of games, you can make mistakes. And if you look at the season, I make more mistakes than them during these last games and during these last months. So that can happen. The good thing is that we have one more game to change everything. So that should be our focus. The best thing is to look at the goals and all the actions that Andre had in the game, to talk with Vital and Craig and try to. This is the best way to help any player, is to focus on the game, what happened, what we need to improve, and then put the player again.
And you said you hadn't spoken to Andre yet. When you do speak to him, what are you going to say?
Nothing. We have training, go with Vital, and we deal with that. So I'm really natural. That can happen with any player. We will try to help There's nothing I can say to Andre in this moment that would help him. So the most important thing is to be natural, and then when the time comes, I will choose the best 11 to play. But I'm really confident in Andre.
Well, Onana's time at United has been far from smooth sailing. Since the beginning of last season, he has made 8 errors, leading to goals across all competitions. That's more than any Premier League goalkeeper. And if you're honest, it was the last thing he needed after Nemanja Matic called Onana one of the worst keepers in Manchester United history.
You've got to say that Nemanja Matic has kind of been proved right tonight with Onana's performance, that, you know, Onana is probably one of the worst Man United goalkeepers in living memory, and Onana's given him every bit of evidence he needs tonight by, you know, making 2 massive mistakes. Certainly one massive mistake for the first goal. The second one wasn't as big, but it was certainly an error that he should have dealt with it. So Onana, you know, he said that Lyon weren't as good as Man United. He thought it would be an easy game. Matic had to go back, and, you know, Onana made a fool of himself tonight in his performance.
He's had good months. He's had good weeks. He's had good games. But I think still there are too many of these errors cropping in. I mean, this is not the first time this season that United have dropped points because of things that Onana could have done better. Obviously, I'd give him to the end of the season. I don't think there's any viable alternative in the squad right now. But I think at a moment when basically everything at United is in a kind of flux, from the back room to the football pitch, everyone is fearing a little bit for you know, whether they're really going to be a part of this project going forward under Ruben Amorim. I think it's the worst possible time for Onana to make a mistake like this. He's an experienced enough player to know that, you know, timing in football is everything, and it's just not a great time for him to be making mistakes of this magnitude.
People had Paris Saint-Germain favourites for this year's Champions League, and last night they put down a real marker with a dominant win over Aston Villa in the first leg of their quarter-final.
The late goal meant they won 3-1 in Paris, but in truth, it could have been a lot more. Though Unai Emery was bullish, and he's hoping that the Villa Park atmosphere can inspire his players next week.
2-1, we were thinking for the next match, playing to win. And with 3-1, still being the same. We need win the next match. I am very proud of the players playing here against PSG, and we compete fantastic. And we were close to get good results. At the end, with this goal, still more or less the same, because we will win the next week, I believe.
OK, well, for more reaction to last night, now we can head live to Paris, where our reporter, Daniel Kahn, is waiting for us, enjoying a spring morning. I mean, Dan, when we just looked back at the highlights, I mean, is there anything Villa could have done differently? It does feel like 2-1 is a very different scoreline to 3-1, and that last goal was quite deflating.
Yeah, good morning, Hannah. I think so, absolutely. I mean, it was such a tough game for Aston Villa. I mean, we've seen them perform in the Conference League last season, the Champions League this one, against some huge teams, but I think this felt just another level. I mean, compared to, say, Club Brugge in the previous round. I mean, PSG, I think they were really the cause of this. I don't think it was necessarily Aston Villa performing badly on the day. I mean, Unai Emery, when we've watched his European games, I've covered quite a few of them now in the last 2 years, away from home, he usually sets his team up to be very difficult to beat. I think with PSG as well, I don't think that was a surprise in that sense. You know, we saw Jacob Ramsey almost become a left wing back in that first half and make a 5 at the back. Usually they'll defend in a 4-4-2, but they weren't able to do that and get out because PSG just controlled the game so much. When Villa took the lead, obviously, through Morgan Rogers, that felt like a pivotal point in the game. If they could get to half-time 1-0 up, maybe PSG would have felt a few nerves in the second half. But that goal by Desiré Doué, as we saw there, I mean, that just changed the whole momentum of the game at that point. I think PSG just went flying from then on. But I think going into the second leg, I think Unai Emery perhaps will see a few tactical changes. He did say after the game that he'll learn from that and he'll adapt the team to try and win the game. That's what they have to do, of course. But I wonder if we'll see some personnel changes as well. Marco Asensio and Ollie Watkins both started on the bench yesterday, came on for the last 10 to 15 minutes. And I think that was the biggest change, is without Watkins, they didn't have that ball, that target man to really get out from the back, the defence, the midfielders who were very deep. When they did get the ball, a chance to play, they didn't have that outlet. So I think that's what they'll need at Villa Park. But as well as the personnel and Unai Emery, they're going to need the fans, aren't they? Because they have such a tough mountain to climb. And that's what Unai Emery is calling on in the second leg.
We are very proud of everybody supporting Aston Villa the way we are doing. And of course, to enjoy in Villa Park next week, cut-off final Champions League against Paris Saint-Germain. And of course, the Prince William, the supporters, the old supporters, they were living in 1982, the Cup the Europe winning, and the younger supporter. We are going to try to enjoy, to have one day special as well in Villa Park, and try to get our best.
And Dan, a word on PSG, already knocked out Liverpool. They beat Manchester City in the group stage. Did they underline last night why they are favourites for so many?
Absolutely, James. I mean, you just look at how well they work as a unit. To watch them in person was a pleasure. To see how fluid the system is. I mean, you have alternating fullbacks in Nuno Mendes, who ends up being a winger. You have Achraf Hakimi, who alternates between 3 at the back to being a winger to a 10. He's even a 9 at some points. I mean, it was brilliant to watch. But I think also they're a far cry from what we've seen in the last decade from the teams. Even Unai Emery managed the big names of, Messi, Cavani, Mbappe, Marco Verratti, Zlatan Ibrahimovic as well in the last decade at PSG. What you could see now is an absolute unity, every player working. I mean, look at Kvaratskhelia Kvaratskhelia, who scored the second fantastic goal. I mean, he was their big money signing in January, £60 million from Napoli. He's still tracking Marcus Rashford back in the closing stages of the game. Someone who's worth talking about as well is Désiré Doué, the young Frenchman, 19 years old, who scored that first goal. As I mentioned, it's such an important part of the match. I mean, he made the move from Reims last summer, and you look at his stats, I mean, 13 goal contributions in his last 12 games. He also has been called up to France for the first time in the most recent international break, being capped for the first time. He seems to have a very bright future. I wouldn't be surprised if he's involved in some golden boy conversations later on this year in terms of that award. And I mean, let's just talk about that goal. What a fantastic effort. He was off balance, and Emilio Martinez didn't even dive for it, so hopefully that shows just how good that was. But as I mentioned, this PSG team, there's no ego, they're all working for each other, and that's what Luis Enrique is trying to build over the last 12 months.
From the last year, and especially this year, we changed more or less our DNA, trying to sign young players with a lot of quality. We have that resources, and I think it's important try to develop our idea not only with the young players, which is important, but also with the experienced players. And I think we are in that mix, that important mix, with the confidence and with the enough energy to try to go through the next phase and try to make history in Paris.
Well, I'll tell you, Luis Enrique said after that as well to me in that news conference that they're going to be going to Birmingham to win. That's all they know. That's all they know how to play. So I think Aston Villa and Unai Emery have a very, very tough challenge at home. Let's not forget, they've beaten the likes of Bayern Munich there in the Champions League this season. They've been fantastic at Villa Park since Unai Emery has been in charge. Although they are 3-1 down going into the second leg, you just never know, because Unai Emery is a mastermind.
That we've been leading on this hour is the Liverpool news tonight, that Mohamed Salah, as our understanding, is edging closer now to signing that new deal at Liverpool. The club also confident Virgil van Dijk is going to do the same. If they do tie both down to new deals, how significant is that for Liverpool?
Oh, yeah. A massive, huge. I didn't expect any of them to sign, if I'm being honest. I thought when you see your contract out to, July, they're free agents in July, but they could sort out a deal now at from Christmas on, really. To get them two signed up with the amount of money they'd have been losing every week for not signing, which could have been 2 years ago, phenomenal. Bad news for Arsenal, bad news for Man City, bad news for Chelsea. Them two stand makes Liverpool very, very strong again next season. I thought if they lost them two, or two of the three, I thought they'd be right up against it next season.
I mean, it's rumbled on, hasn't it, for months and months of the contract talks of those and Alexander-Arnold, who we'll come to in a moment. Has there been a distraction, do you think, at that time?
No, not for me. I mean, I think I feel sorry for Liverpool in a way, and I don't mean feel sorry for... But they've won the league quite easily, and they will win the league quite easily. That's the holy grail. You know, at the start of the season, you know, everybody goes bang. If you can win the Premier League, that is the ultimate. You know, the cup competitions, they're bonuses. The FA Cup, for me, the draw wins you the FA Cup. You know, very rarely you go and beat Man City, Liverpool, Arsenal and Chelsea away from home and then go on and win the FA Cup. Very rarely, if ever. So, for me, you know, I think Liverpool lost more games one year in the Champions League than the league and didn't win the league. So it just shows you how big the Champions League, the Premier League is. So for me, I think they've been amazing this season. You're always going to drop off when you're that clear, you know. And I just think they took a bit of undue stick when they lost to Paris Saint-Germain and then went out, you know, lost the League Cup final. I just thought it was a bit unfair, if I'm being honest.
Do you think that a lot of the weight, was it down to just wanting to get the terms or as close to the terms as they wanted and not necessarily thinking there are 1, 2, 3 clubs that I want to go and play for, that they were just wanting to stay at Liverpool but on their own terms?
Yeah, I thought so. I think sometimes when you're players like them now who've like done so much in the game, is they'll always be looking at the bigger picture, not so much the money, I don't think. They earn enough money, they got enough money. What they'll be looking at, who's staying, who's going. You know, who's the players that are going to be staying? You know, are you going to be selling everybody? They probably even know who's probably going to come in next season or who Slot's looking at for next season. So I think that's what they look for. I don't think they would sign and want to come 5th or 6th in the league next season. Absolutely not.
And yet, that it seems they're going to stay despite the fact, it seems inevitable now, that Trent Alexander-Arnold is not. I guess from Liverpool's point of view, if you had to lose one of those 3, would it be Trent?
Yeah, I would say yes, but I shouldn't say yes because he's a top player. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? He's a phenomenal player. I think he's the best passer of the football in the Premier League by a country mile. He's got every range of passing. He's a phenomenal footballer. You know, he takes a lot of stick for his defending, but he's won everything in the game. So I don't know how that one really plays out, really. Do you know what I mean? You know, if you couldn't defend and you didn't have a clue, you wouldn't be playing right back for Liverpool. So, for me, I think he's a special player. But we go back to what I said before, who turns down Real Madrid? No, I don't think I've ever known of anybody to turn Real Madrid down. I think when you're growing up as a kid, especially the age he is, where he'd have seen the great Real Madrid teams, that oh my God, that would have been his wildest dreams to go and play for Real Madrid at the Bernabeu in the white kit, you know.
As you said, everyone wants to play for Real Madrid, don't they?
Yeah, 100%. You know, everybody would have loved to play for him. I don't know anybody who wouldn't. So I don't know why he gets stick. I don't know why he's getting stick. He's given everything to Liverpool. He's won everything. He cost them nothing. And he's going to go for nothing. But he's going to go winning everything.
Hey, let's get more build-up now to tonight's Champions League ties.
Yeah, I'm pleased to say our European football expert, Dougie Critchley, is joining us. Dougie, good to see you. We heard a lot from Mikel Arteta yesterday. Prediction that it's going to be a bit of a classic tonight, do we think?
It could well be. It could well be. I mean, Arsenal's USP in their tournament so far has been their defence. They've only conceded 6 goals in 10 games, with 3 of those coming against PSV in that tie where they won pretty comfortably after that demolition in the first leg, let's say. But obviously Gabriel's injury puts that slightly into question. Hopefully Ben White and Jurrien Timber are fit, because you'd love to see one of those available to partner William Saliba at centre-back against the Kylian Mbappe force that is. Scored more goals than any other Real Madrid player in their debut season already. Kylian Mbappe so impressive. Vinicius Junior hasn't been in magnificent form himself, so that's maybe someone that they'd be worried about, that it's not necessarily going in the best form. He's only scored 4 goals in his last 16 games for Real Madrid. But Real Madrid have lost 10 games in all competitions this season. They only lost 2 last year, so they don't go into this in the best of form. They lost at the weekend against Valencia. It now looks like Barcelona are the strong favourites to win La Liga. They've got a Copa del Rey final against Barcelona to come as well, and could play Barcelona in a Champions League final as well. So it could be really, really fascinating. But in terms of this one, I give Arsenal more of a chance than most people, but let's see how it plays out.
Yeah, they seem to be really up for it, Arsenal. The comments from Mikel Arteta that, you know, no one's got as much desire as them and the qualities that they possess. And then on the flip side, you know, Carlo Ancelotti saying that experience is going to be a key thing here. They've got the experience, haven't they?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Arsenal have only made it passed the quarter-final stage once since they made the final in 2006, which was in 2009. Since 2009, Real Madrid have won this competition 6 times. So in terms of experience, it is just chalk and cheese. But Real Madrid go into this with their own defensive issues as well. Militao's out, David Alaba's just come back from injury, Dani Carvajal's out as well, so that's why they're looking to bring in Trent Alexander-Arnold this summer. Volamondi, their left-back's out, Courtois missed games as well. So Arsenal can't just rely on the fact that they've got some defensive issues and use that as a complaint, because we've seen Real Madrid have their own issues so far this year. And Carlo Ancelotti is under a little bit of pressure. There's been some question marks about his use of some of their squad players like Arda Güler and Brahim Diaz. And Kylian Mbappe has really come into his own in the last 3-4 months of this season, but got off to a fairly slow start as well. And Vinicius Junior is the big concern in terms of his form going into this. Having said that, you know, Arsenal with Bukayo Saka back and Martinelli looking a little bit brighter in his most recent appearances as well. Maybe there's some belief there, but Mikel Merino is a huge test for him up front as well against Rudiger's back fully fit now as well. So it is going to be a real challenge for Arsenal, but I can see them, if they're in this tie 75% of the way through next week, then maybe there's a chance, but I can just see Real Madrid maybe pulling away by a goal.
Just picking up on what you said about Real Madrid, lost 10 games this season now. We know, being Real Madrid manager, you're under pressure regardless of the situation. You mentioned Carlo Ancelotti's under pressure. Is it a case of they need to win the Champions League, and if they don't, it might be curtains for Carlo?
Yeah, I would have thought that they'll make a change whatever happens at the end of this year. I think he's probably come to the end of the road. Not that he's struggled this season particularly, and his record at Real Madrid's absolutely phenomenal, but you're just looking at some of the noises behind the scenes, links to Xabi Alonso, Bayer Leverkusen, former Real Madrid player, who played under Carlo Ancelotti all those years ago at Real Madrid. There's been links to Antonio Raiola at Bournemouth as well, and maybe it does feel like time is now for a little bit of a change at Real Madrid. Hansi Flick's Barcelona have played the far more entertaining football. They scored 9 goals against Real Madrid in 2 La Liga games so far this year as well, and they are the favourites for the Copa del Rey final, and probably, given the fact they've got an easier Champions League draw as well, you'd expect them to go maybe deeper in the Champions League as well, because Barcelona play Dortmund tomorrow night. Arsenal's a much tougher test. So Carlo Ancelotti is under a little bit of pressure. I wouldn't be surprised if they parted ways at the end of the season.
In the other tie tonight, you've got Bayern Munich against Inter Milan. So you've got the Bundesliga leaders against the Serie A champions. Liga, both top in their domestic leagues. This is going to be tasty. Who do you make the favourites?
I think marginally Inter Milan, but that's mainly down to the injuries that Bayern Munich have got to contend with. Musiala is now out for the entire season. Pavlovic, who would have started in midfield's out. Neuer as well is out. Upamecano at the back, so it looks like Eric Dyer will play alongside Kim Min-jae. But Bayern have been really, really impressive in the league this year. Only Barcelona have scored more goals than them in the entirety of Europe, and Barcelona have played two more games than them. But in the Champions League, they've had some issues, particularly away from home, losing to Aston Villa, losing to Barcelona, losing to Feyenoord. But in their last 16 tie against Leverkusen, I thought they were particularly impressive, winning 5-0 in that. It looks like they'll sew up the Bundesliga title as well. But their home record in the Champions League is very impressive. They're unbeaten in their last 22 games. So I do make them the favourites against Inter Milan tonight, but Inter Milan shouldn't be underestimated. You know, they've reached a final more recently than Bayern in 2023 as well, but they've had some issues away from home. They've only won 1 of their last 8 away games, and have had some injury issues to Pavard and Lautaro Martinez. His form has dropped off. Dumfries and Calhanoglu have missed games this year as well. So Inter have the more recent Champions League record, and I'd make them favourites across this tie. But in terms of tonight, I still think Bayern's home record gives them the slight edge, with Harry Kane once again scoring at the weekend.
I was going to say, certain Harry Kane, 10 goals already in this campaign, only second to Rafinha at Barcelona. Can he be the difference tonight for them?
I think he's been directly involved in more goals than anyone else since the start of last season in the Champions League, and goes from strength to strength. And you see the ball whipped in from Michael Olise just then as well. He's had a brilliant impact on arrival from Crystal Palace. It was only sort of 4 years ago he was playing for Reading in the Championship. What an amazing turnaround from him. I think there's been very few players that have adapted so seamlessly to a club like Bayern Munich. But Harry Kane, with his level of experience, he'll be a real weapon for Bayern Munich tonight against an Inter Milan side that haven't been at their absolute best this year due to a few injury issues, and they're on track to finish with 11 fewer points than they did last year, and are still in a really tight Serie A race, although with Napoli drawing against Bologna last night, they are now 3 points clear at the top of Serie A. So I'm maybe backing Inter across the...
Just try and digest what we've seen at the Emirates tonight. Arsenal 3, Real Madrid 0. Paul Merston, A, can you believe it? B, how do they do it?
No, I couldn't. I just couldn't call this game. I said either way, it wouldn't surprise me. Wouldn't surprise me if Real Madrid won 3-0. I couldn't see Arsenal winning 3-0. It's probably the greatest night at the Emirates, in my opinion. It's got to be. You know, these are champions of Europe. These are the team. They've gone there. They've come to the Emirates, and Arsenal have destroyed them. Absolutely destroyed them. 3 phenomenal goals. I didn't think people could bend balls like that. I mean, the last time I see that was when I used to buy a ball from Woolworths when I was a little kid. They used to go with the wind. But yeah, 3 unbelievable goals, 2 phenomenal free kicks. And Mourinho, that feel sorry for him when he has to play up front because he's a little bit lost. But just got an unbelievable finish today. Honestly, if Haaland or Harry Kane or Mbappe scored that goal, you'd be going mad. Phenomenal finish. So, yeah, brilliant. I would say the greatest night at the Emirates, in my opinion.
And the greatest night of Declan Rice's career?
It's got to be. It's got to be. He's never, ever scored a free kick in his life. Never. Well, him simply professional. I don't know if he got one when he was 10. But he got, like, the two are just unbelievable. Like, one, he's got to be about 3 yards outside the post, whips back in. And the other one, Courtois, is over that side, and he puts it in the top corner, and it hits the side netting when it goes in. That's how good a goal it was. And the other one, Lewis Skelly's a great little pass. People won't look at the pass, but his pass is so precise with enough pace on it where Mourinho just has to glide it. It's a lot to do, but he has to glide it in. If it bobbles in or anything else, he has to take a touch. A brilliant night, brilliant night. Have to get through the first 20 minutes, I would say, over at the Bernabeu next week, because they'll come out, and if they score early, you know, you never know.
Do you think they do it?
You know, it's Real Madrid, isn't it? You know, them 3 up front will be a lot more than what they were tonight. Arsenal are very good, but if Arsenal can get 3, you know, Real Madrid at the Bernabeu, if they get going. So I think Arsenal, first 20 minutes will be really, really, really important, because that place will be rocking next Wednesday night.
Yeah, and they head there with an advantage. Surely they never could have imagined in their wildest dreams they would have 3-0 they lead. And I asked whether that was Declan Rice's finest moment of his career. I should qualify that. Finest moment, certainly of his Arsenal career. I'm aware he lifted a European trophy with West Ham, of course.